My official name is James Edward Barry. The reason I say official is because during the course of all my school years there in New Albany, that's where I went to school in New Albany, uh, I was under the name of James Edward Graham. That was my alias name, which my mother had married a Graham, and so we all ended up when she took signed us to go to school. We all ended up with Graham in school. Then I realized at the end of my last year in school, the 12th grade, I realized I cannot go out in society with the Graham name. I have to go with my birth certificate. So that's when I changed it. So most of the people that I graduated with, they know me by James Graham as opposed to James Barrett. But over time, most of them have because I've been to all the reunions that I've in my schools and various things. So they adapted, but just so you know. And I was born. My birthday is October. I was born October 18, 1953, in Etta, Mississippi. That's the little small town outside of Oxford, Mississippi, in the rural area there. Of course, I have no clue. I've been there. I didn't have any idea about the area, but I did visit the area there. Uh, my mother had shown me where we actually were born. And shortly after I was born, that we moved over off of. We moved into Union County. Union County, of course, Etta's in Lafayette County, so we moved into Union County, up around right off of 30 there in Union County. But there we lived with my granddaddy, somewhere close to my granddad there, and my uncles and aunts. We all kind of stayed close together for several years, and then we left that area of Union County, and then we moved into closer to New Albany. And the earliest I remember in New Albany is actually we moved out in a place called Punkin Center. I don't know if that place still exists out there. I mean, by name, but we call it Punkin Center. We lived out there, and of course, we were on a farm where my stepfather and my mother worked fields and things of that nature out there. And for school was one of those. We started. I remember starting school about 7 years old. We went to a little small school there at around Union Grove Baptist Church, I believe it's in Union Grove or Union Hill Baptist Church right there in Pumpkin Center. So that's where we had our school, 2-room school. For my first 2 years of school, that's where I went. I do remember that. And then finally, school, they moved us to start busing us over to B.F. Ford around the third. I think I entered B.F. Ford about the third grade. So in B.F. Ford, I was there from third grade up to about the ninth grade. I think I finished ninth grade at B.F. Ford. And then, of course, we had to integrate into the local school, W.P. Daniels school. I had to go to because I lived in the city at that point. So, and a lot of the other people that I've grown up with, had to go to some of the county schools, friends, and things of that nature. So, my mother's name, her maiden name was Bessie Mae Barry. She now goes by Bessie Shorter, and she lives there in New Albany. She still lives in New Albany. And my oldest brother, it was 8 of us total. So I have 4 brothers, and it was 4 brothers and 3 sisters. So my oldest brother is Robert Barry Jr., and he lives in Monroeville, Alabama. I have a brother named Eddie Barry. He lives there in New Albany. A brother named W.T. Graham. He has deceased. A brother named Eric Shorter. He lives there in New Albany. Sister named Janelle Graham. She lives in New Albany. And I had a middle sister named Eugene Graham. She just deceased. And I have a baby sister named Mary Graham, and she's Actually, she's married Mackenzie now because she's not her uh, maiden name is, I mean, her married name is Mary Mackenzie, and she lives there in New Albany as well. We lived in several places in New Albany. Um, this is where we get a little bit on the rusty side. Place called Stephen Quarters, loose off the railroad track down. Anyway, it's trying to think of a landmark that's close to it, but Stephen Quarters. There was a little community called Stephen's Quarters. We lived there. My grandfather moved over near a place called the Flat, where I think Merchant Truck Line, I believe, was, if anybody remembers that place, I don't remember if it's still there, but where Merchant Truck Line used to be, there was a place called the Flats, an African American community there. My grandfather lived there, and we lived, periodically because of his age. Some of us had to go stay with him, so I lived in those areas periodically. But my mother and the overall family, again, we lived Stephen Quarters, the Flat, and we actually lived there close to B.F. Ford School, right off of Oak Street. There, we lived in that community. Then we ended up out in Beaver Dam. So we moved around quite a bit during those years as I was growing up, and then we finally settled in. My mother bought a home back in 60, I think somewhere around 68, 69, up on, I think they call it Standish Road up in New Albany, down by the African Americans. There used to be the swimming pool. We had a community over there. All these names change. It's kind of hard to keep up with all these places, but that's where she lives in there now. And we've been there up until I graduated from high school and moved on. We moved out to a place called Beaver Dam, and we had to ride a bus there for about a year or so. Then we finally moved back. I think when we left Beaver Dam, then my mother actually bought a home. So I was out there for about a year or two, and that's when we. But that was, I think I was actually riding the bus to W.P. Daniel at that point. So that was in the late 60s. We were with other African American families, but we worked farms in those early years of life, and so community was family among families there in terms of how we moved. We just didn't move out and isolated out by ourselves. We're deep into the suburbs. We didn't do nothing like that. We mostly moved where other families were close by, and as part of that was those were still in the years where if you lived on someone's property, it was a case where you worked the property. I don't think we were sharecroppers. I wouldn't classify us as sharecroppers because we didn't work land to earn the benefits from it. We had to work for the person that owned the land, and that's how but the places we lived in were owned by the person that owned the land. So I would just classify it as the owner of the property, which owned farmland and animals. We rented from him, but as part of that, we assisted with his farms. We picked the cotton, chopped corn, so forth. But we got paid based on what. I say we, of course, my parents were paid based on working and in those particular scenarios of life during those times. So, as I said, we moved when I first started to be at Ford at third grade. I guess I was about 8 or 9 years old. But I do remember spending probably half the school year. I have a 9-month period. About half that was in working on farms, and I mean, just by the grace of God, we still were able to, with the nurturing of our teachers there and and I guess just the situational that it was at the time. We still were able to progress along without ever having to be set back. And granted, I feel like, and I think that I wasn't the smartest guy, but I was pretty good at keeping up with the grades and things, and the teachers. And I think it was just the schools recognized, and they were able to accommodate us, those that had to be out of school, for assisting with the harvesting of various farms and so forth. But yes, I do remember that, and yes, I'm younger than him, but yet it was still going on, and when I came along at that time.
Did you still, even when you started school in third grade at B.F. Ford, did you still have to miss school to work?
I had to miss school to work, yes, with the family, yes.
So that didn't, the consolidation of those schools didn't end that practice of kids having to prioritize work over school.
By the time we had to, by the time the segregation came, or desegregation, I even want to label it, came about, we had finished, we were no longer working on farms. We had moved to town at that point, and at that point, my mother had a job. I think she had a job at the shirt factory. She had finally, at that time, there was a factory there in town called the First Shirt Factory, and she worked there, and I believe Futorian. And so we had moved to town. We were there, so we didn't have to. By the time I got ready to go to W.P. Daniel, we were no longer working in the farms area, in the fields of that nation. So, but we didn't miss that much school at that time. By then, I mean, things had completely changed in terms of the amount of school. Because once we realized that we didn't have to do the farms, it was then the kids could focus on actually going to church. I mean, going to school regularly, as opposed to missing based on having to take care of fields or do the field work and things of that nature. I remember very little, only that it was like a 2-room school. We all rode the bus to the school, and very little other than that. Like I said, I just remembered all of us that lived in that general community out there in your Punkin Center went there, and how they divided the school up for different grades, I couldn't tell you. Just that we all were able to. I mean, based on their schedule, they were able to get us through, and yeah, it's hard. But other than that, I can't remember anything. I remember the place, the building. I do know it was next to a church there, and I had attended that church there. But again, the exact name of it I don't remember. But I believe it's still standing out there now. Whenever I come home, I sometimes will go about because I want to show my wife the places I had grown up at, and so it gives me just some memory things. And of course, I wanted my son to see it as well, and make sure he understood that things have come quite a ways from way I was reared, as opposed to the way we rear our son. So that was something interesting. And that's something I routinely do when I come down. Not predominantly. It was about 3 families on this, and I don't know if the guy's property is still, and you may remember a guy named Seth Foley. That was the owner of the property at the time that we worked out there, when we lived on the property. But it was like 3 families, 3 African American families, 4 out there at that time, and no 5. It was 5 of us. Yeah, 5 families out there, and and that was we all worked in general for that individual. He owned all the property primarily out there. So, but that, I'm trying to think, it was, I just, I can only tell you that it wasn't a sole African American community. It was just like we were we were there based on living on this guy's property to work his land as part of pay rent, and you get to work his property for him. When we moved down to a place called Oak, right off of Oak Grove Street, right, I think is where the middle school is, New Albany Middle School is, fairly close to a African American neighborhood there, and that's where we ended up at, and mostly African Americans lived in the neighborhood. They used to have a grocery store. I think Mr. Turner, I believe his last name was Turner, had a grocery store there nearby. Mrs. Howard, Howard Hope Motel was close by, and in general, the actually the entire there's a good little portion of that section of New Albany was African American, and of course we walked to school there, going up to BF Ford, and we also went from there to WP Daniel. I remember walking from that where we stayed there across, actually going across the main road 78, and had to cross a cemetery through a ditch. It was the thing we had to do. Yeah, that was just, now you bringing back some memories. But yeah, getting to WP Daniel the first year walking was interesting, and then and this wonderful thing happened after that. I had a one of my teachers from BF Ford named Aurelius Gibson. He was I think he was my science teacher, I believe, at BF Ford, and I don't know, we sort of befriended. He I say he liked me maybe, but he entrusted his vehicle. Once I got my license, he entrusted his vehicle so that and asked me to allow me to transport his daughter along with us, some of my siblings, to WP Daniels on a regular basis to go to school. So I thought that was pretty interesting, the last few years of school there. And just, again, the level of trust that he had in us. But he knew, and we all grew up with him based on being at school. So that was pretty commendable. And anytime I would go home, I would always remember to go see him. Because his father, to be honest, a little flashback here, his father was Aurelius Gibson. Even though he was a school teacher, his father was a barber. So when I lived in the flats over there near Stephen Quarters, his father ran a barber shop there. So we would always go there. So it was like we pretty much knew where most of the African Americans lived there, and we had some contact with them once in a while. But through growth, it was just again, I was very, very proud of Mr. Gibson just taking the interest in allowing me and trusting me to with his oldest daughter to transport her to school and use his vehicle to do that, and that was great. I like that. When you walked in his Mr. Aurelius Gibson's dad barbershop, and also Aurelius Gibson, he worked there periodically when he wasn't teaching school. He also worked there. But the big thing was haircuts. I'll use this term. He always say when with Mr. Gibson, the daddy, you go in there to get your haircut. Of course, today you would ask any kind of style you want. But you walked in his barbershop, we got one style, which was they call a collision. You see what my hair looked like now? That was a collision. So he would always cut all the hair off, and you didn't walk around with puffed up hair or afros, none of that stuff. It was all cut. But you know, it was funny because other people wanted to do something different, but no, he seemed to always. I guess he knew as a of course we sometimes didn't always agree with what things were said, but our parents was we always knew that if someone complained that we didn't act right, or my mother or my stepfather, or we get disciplined. So that was so it was always, you go there, you get your hair cut and you get out of there. So but it was just things happen, and things happen for a reason. And I look back and I say I'm glad for those moments. Mr. Gibson Barbershop was the primary. I sort of remember there was a barbershop where the old bus station, and maybe still the new bus station. I don't. No, it's not the new bus station. Where the old bus station used to be downtown. You know where First National Bank is? Right around the corner used to be a what do they call that? They called it. I don't remember what they called that neighborhood, but it was it's not too far from First National Bank, right around the corner there. There was a little shop there. We used to have a pool hall down there. When I say we, there was a local pool hall that that the African American frequented, and that was a barbershop there. But we always, my mother always directed us to go to Mr. Gibson. As I got old enough, around the age of 14, I remember the government had a program out in which I was going to school at that time. Had a program out that allowed people students / young people to join and get a job. So in this program, I was able to join. I think it was around age 14, and I worked for a custodian at the local school, like the middle school. We would go there in the summer, and part of the job would be do the landscaping on the yards and make sure all the floors was waxed and cleaned during the summer and ready for school when fall comes, a new start of the start of the new school season. So that was my first real experience at working at the age of about 14, 15. And I did that for a while, for several years. And then, so I would take advantage of the opportunity to work in the early life. And then I got to a point, and my brother graduated from W.P. Daniel in 70. And then I ended up working in Blue Mountain at a trailer factory up there. So once I started working, and that was my focus during the months of summer when I was out of school. The one thing I will share with you is that the year of 1968, when Dr. Martin Luther King was assassinated in Memphis, I remembered I was out with several groups of fellows. We were just out, I don't know, walking. We were downtown New Albany, walking around, and I remember hearing that Dr. Martin Luther King had been assassinated, and following the crowd, we all somehow decided to put a chain across the downtown New Albany road. I mean, right in the heart of New Albany, where across the railroad track, where Cat's drugstore is one corner. I think First National Bank was on the other corner. But right there in the heart of town, we strung up a chain across the road. And I remember I was part of that. I went in with that. And along came the law enforcement, and they talked to us about that and told us we couldn't do that. And I thought to myself afterward, well, what a brain dead person I was for getting out there doing that, in the heat of the moment. But I realized that that was not something that I should have been part of, and that was the one thing I did. I remember, but I said I will never ever follow the crowd in those type of environments. But I was, granted, the law enforcement, they didn't try to arrest anybody. They just gave us a pep talk about not doing things that we shouldn't be doing, like breaking the law or stringing across the street. But I remember that, and I kept that, and I hold that dear to me, because I tried to make sure that as I reared my own child, the right things to talk about, the right things to do, the things that you're going to encounter things, and as you do that, make sure that you do the right thing and avoid putting yourself at risk out there for potential problems later on in life. So, but as a teenager, I can't say we did a whole lot different. I pretty much worked. I didn't spend a lot of time running around, hanging out, things of that nature. I did that after I left home. I did some of that stuff, but I didn't do it while I was there. I pretty much worked. Even at home, I had to babysit my younger siblings. My mother was, again, she was at times after she got in a divorce from my stepfather, she was the only breadwinner, so in order for her to work, there had to be somebody to keep an eye on our siblings and make sure they didn't get in any problems or they were taken care of. So my oldest brother and myself and would be responsible for those particular chores. So we stayed there, and she was very particular about making sure we stayed close to the house without getting in trouble. So I'd have to say we didn't get the opportunity, or that's not an opportunity to go get in trouble. We didn't go against her wishes in terms of going out and hanging out with the other folks. If it didn't happen during the course of the day, such as, we did a little yard playing ball and things like that in the yard with other local children and stuff like that, but nothing like going to clubs or hanging out. Now, that being said, what did we do for entertainment? In our my early teenage years, they had a place called Bert Turner's Cafe right there in the flat. And for entertainment, get this, for entertainment, people go down where Park Chevrolet, I believe, got a dealership right there. I think that's where it was still there. But Park Chevrolet, when they closed business on Saturday, people would pull their vehicles up, park near the building of Park Chevrolet, look at and face the Bud Cafe, and just watch adults do what adults do in the course of the evening. And of course, he has he served some great food there. So we always loved his wonderful fish sandwich and things of that nature. So that was the entertainment. So our teachers at D.F. Ford, they made sure and routinely ensured that we understood the changes that we were about to encounter the following year. They knew it was the last year we were going to be at D.F. Ford, and so I think they went out of their way to make sure that we knew and how to conduct ourselves, how to ensure that we knew what the right things were that we need to make sure we do when we go over there, and what we possibly would encounter. I think that, again, I refer back to one of my teachers would have been Aurelius B. Gibson. He would tell us about the times when he was in the Air Force and some of the things he encountered just when he served in the service. And he said, there would be things that we would encounter out there. And so he was just one of many. I remember Miss Miss Kennedy, Miss Camilla. I think her first name is Miss Camille Kennedy. She was married to Coach Kennedy. Used to be Coach Kennedy, and as well as him. But I remember her and my English teacher. She was someone else that would make sure that as part of that conversation during that course of that last year, we were going to be at BF4. That she talked to her. I think all of our teachers probably at one time or another made sure that we were aware and that nothing to be afraid. I mean, it wasn't like they, what I remember basically is just be aware of the surroundings, to be aware that things are going to be different, but go in there focused on doing your classwork and make sure that. And the other thing, they made sure we knew we were just as smart as anybody else, and that we were doing well in the school that we were in, and we could do well over there. So there was no I think nothing negative. It was all positive stroking of us to make sure that success. That's Mr. Gibson. He was big on. He wanted us to all to be successful, and but I just remember him just being one of those strokers of he went into the service. He did well. He got out because he wanted to do something else, which was teach school, but his success was based on a lot of that. So he just imparted some of that to us, so to make sure we knew how to go about life, and that's what it was. I think he was just teaching us how life would be, whether it be going to the next school or even just as we go out in life in general once we graduate from school. So that's the best what I can remember of it. As I look back, the one thing that I think I wrote down and as part of something that I put down once before, I said one thing I liked about WSP Daniel that was exciting to me was my last year there. I participated in helping with the stage setup of Wizard of Oz play that we were doing. I had gotten an opportunity to join that play team or play a character portion of it. But my job was to help with the setup of the for the play. So I enjoyed working with that, and I didn't have a bad experience there personally. I went there mission focused. I use the word mission focused now, but then my focus pretty much was get there, get an education, and get out of there. And I thought that, and my own personal experience is that most of the people that I befriended there and got to know based on classmates and things, they were pretty nice people. And I still remember some of them. And when we have reunions, class reunions for the class of '72, we still communicate, and that's been a positive thing that I remember. Even though I was only there for 3 years, the 10th, 11th, and 12th grade, but I came away with a positive knowledge of that. Didn't have any negative experience with the teachers and the staff and the students. I can't, that's just my experience with it. After graduation, one of my classmates named Jerry Dean, I hope you get to interview him, but he and I don't know, we had went to work for a Futorian manufacturing company out there. So we were working in the shipping department together after we graduated high school. And then one day around September, he walked up to me and said, "Hey, I'm thinking about this Navy program that we can go in as a buddy." And so, I listened to him and I thought about it, and I read a little pamphlet he had, and I thought, man, that'd be something good. So then I knew that my supervisor with this white guy, one of my supervisors over in Futorium. I knew that he had been in the Navy before because he had told us he was in the military. So I went and talked to him, and of course he expounded all this. Well, you're not gonna like it. You're just you guys are gonna get burned out. It's not. It was all negative. So I thought, well, it's hard. But I do remember. I remember as hard as I was working there in Futorium, I thought the Navy couldn't be any worse than this. That's what my thoughts were. So Jerry and I, we later on I think that summer, as we got toward the end of summer, didn't have to make a decision about whether we're going to go to college or do something different. So I made it, Jerry and I made the decision that we were going, since we didn't know what we wanted to go to college and what kind of degree we were looking to get into. So we decided to go in the Navy. We had this buddy program that the Navy had, and we joined. So, and the rest is history for me, because I stayed 30 years in the Navy. Jerry stayed the first 4 years, and we got separated in boot camp. He went to a ship in Norfolk. He was on a ship out of Norfolk, and I went to a squadron down in Jacksonville, Florida. And I just had a wonderful experience in the Navy my first 3 years, and I just thought that I saw my calling. That would just seem to be my calling for life, and didn't know it at the time, but all the things were just clicking, and yeah, that's the way my career went. I work on the Navy base. Again, I work for a private company that has a contract with the Navy base, and that's what I just managed the contract for the private company. But but affiliated and still interacting, and still just good to see young sailors, Marines, we got a combination of all services here, and seeing them train every day. So I enjoy just observing that. I don't have a hand in it anymore, because after I left, I retired from the Navy in 2003. So once I retired, that was just a portion of my life that set aside, and had a lot of great memories with it. But I've been with this place now for 15 years, and hey, it's good. It's all good. The ranks within the military. You start at E1, and which is the lowest pay grade within the military structure. Makes no difference which military branch you're in. You start at E1 and work your way up. And the top military rank for enlisted is E9. I would always, after I joined the Navy and started giving us our books and started reading, and I would always focus on, how do I go from at the bottom to the top? And I stayed focused on that. And it was just something that ate at me. And I just would not let go. And if every turn in life, as I progressed within the Navy, I stayed on track with making rank. I stayed. I love the idea of being in charge of people. I just love that idea. Telling people what to do and doing, and then they go do. I say, oh, I love that. So it just gave me all this power, and I love power. but I didn't let it go to my head, but it was just something I enjoyed, and I think that's what made me the person that I am and became over time. But I ended up, again, I started looking at that E1. I went to the top. I went all the way to the E9 category. I made E9, and which is in the Navy, it was Master Chief Petty Officer. And then at that point, the highlight would have to be, I was a Command Master Chief, and this is a very powerful position in the United States Navy on an aircraft carrier. You're Command Master Chief of an aircraft carrier, 3,000 enlisted officer personnel on ship. They call them ship company. Oh, that was a thrill. and a challenge and ethereal. And then I had the opportunity, and I got selected to be the command master chief. That was, and of course, those guys in Washington that make that selection, and that was something again achievable. That I enjoyed that. Once and while as the command master chief of the Eisenhower, I had the opportunity to actually come back off of deployment, and the commander in chief at the time was Bill Clinton. He came aboard, and as part of the recognizing a number of our sailors that did well on that deployment, I was on stage with him, and he was passing out some various medals to sailors, and I got the opportunity to shake his hand. Whoever thought that James Barry would, be shaking hand with the commander in chief of the United States of America? But that was a moment that I cherished for life, and. But that was it. But the greatest achievement, command master chief of Eisenhower. That's not a small task. That's something that I'll always remember. I like Ike, I'm very proud of that moment that I served. And I was command master chief there for 2 years. 2 years before I actually left and went from there to onto other command master chief posts. But that Eisenhower post was very challenging, very rewarding, and that was one of the first combatants to take on females, and I had the privilege of integrating females into the ship. So, like I said, I've done some interviews, and that was, well, you can imagine in America where that became a talking point for a lot of people, and they always wanted to put a mic in front of you to say and tell the American people how it was and how it is integrating and living together with females and all. And that was some challenging times. I enjoyed that. I married my wife out of Milton, Florida. Her name is Debbie, and we have one son, and he lives in Kansas, and we have some beautiful three grandkids. We have three grandkids, and we just that's my joy now. My wife knows that it's just nothing that they can do no wrong. Let's put it that way. And this pandemic has been one of those separators. And we had the opportunity to get them down in August of this past year, and I enjoyed every moment. Whether it was here for a week, I enjoyed every moment with that. So we love our grandkids, and that's what I live for today.